So I really thank Ansgar for this excellent and insightful presentation. Just let me add a quick remark on sunk costs. So I spent 12 years of my life with a Swiss girlfriend, so I am the leader in sunk costs, the leader expert in sunk costs worldwide. And I can tell you that there is also a sunk cost fallacy, which I managed with, and now I'm the proud father of two Italian children. So, Heiner, the floor is yours, and I'm really very curious. Where is your presentation? Okay. So you made, okay.
You put it on
here.
Where is it?
You want to start?
Yeah, no.
Here.
Yeah. Thank you very much for giving me the floor. The second German speaker in a row, but it doesn't matter because I couldn't disagree more with what my predecessor said. So you will hear quite a different view. But as Marcello said this morning, sometimes when we have complex problems, and everybody said this morning it's very complex, the euro area, then we have to make things simple, because complexity is very difficult to understand for human beings, obviously. And economics is a funny field, you see. Up to now, we have, I don't know how many speeches in the morning, and we have not yet reached, with the exception of Alberto for a very short time, we have not reached the macroeconomic level yet. We're talking about government debt, but we're talking isolated about government debt without the other parts of debt in the economy and savings in the economy. This has to be done. And only if you do that, then you get a real and a reasonable picture of what is happening, what can be done, what cannot be done. But why don't we do that? I will show you the world has dramatically changed in the last 10 years. It has dramatically changed. But all the economists in the world don't want to see it because it changes all their views, all their ideas about the world. And so they refuse to look at it and talk about the government as if we were back in the nice years of the 60s or the 50s, where Keynesianism was a wonderful idea because we needed anti-cyclical policies. Today we need something totally different. It has nothing to do with anti-cyclical or anti-cyclical policies. We need a totally different role of the government. And the funny thing is, there's one country in the world that shows us exactly that this is necessary. And this one country is Germany. But that is the point that I come later to. Let me start with a very simple, what we need as if you go to a doctor to see a doctor, what the doctor does is a simple diagnosis, isn't it? The doctor looks at you and sees whether your constitution is good or bad, and then he would ask, what has happened that you're in such a bad shape? Why is Italy in such a bad shape? What has happened at the beginning of the currency union? Alberto has mentioned something, but I will show you that the things are even more straightforward. This is industrial production in the euro area. And you see it's a plain disaster. I don't look at GDP numbers because, you know, if you look at, for example, Spanish GDP numbers, you find always the same number for each quarter, whatever happens in the economy. So I really don't believe it. But if you look at the true figures, you see industrial production is a disaster in Europe. It's even a disaster in Germany. Nobody talks about it, but it's a disaster in Germany. Germany is only better than the others, but it's not good. It's stagnation in Germany since 2011. And Italy is in a recession since 2011. No country in the world has ever been in such, no bigger country, well, some smaller, chaotic third world countries maybe, but no big industrialized country has ever been in such a bad shape for 6 years than Italy is now. And is it all due to the Italians or what? Is it corruption? As Alberto said, corruption for 2,000 years and suddenly corruption kills Italian growth? No, that's nonsense. That's plain nonsense. Something else has happened, and we have to talk about what has happened. But let me look at, you see, industrial production for Spain, Portugal, and Greece is more or less the same. Construction, we have zero interest rate environment for 3, 4, 5 years. And you see what happens with construction in Italy, absolutely nothing. Not even houses this country can build anymore. Isn't that funny? Why don't you do that? The best financial condition for taking mortgages and building houses, and nothing happens. So, but to understand what has happened, we have to look for a minute into the core principles of a monetary economy. And here someone said in the morning, I think it was Heiner, was a similar name to me, he said something very important. He said, what you have learned is monetarism. Huh? The whole EMU was built on monetarism, namely on the idea that there's a certain rather fixed relationship between a money supply and inflation. And that is nonsense. That is not true. That doesn't exist. No central bank in the world, no important central bank, the Bundesbank is the only exception. No important central bank of the world still sticks to monetarism. Nobody believes that monetarism has anything to say about our economies. But that was one of the main pillars on which the whole Maastricht Treaty and the monetary union was built. But if you have the wrong pillar, if the pillar is no longer there, then you have to change the construction of the whole thing. Huh? This is very important. And what is at stake is, you see it here, what you have is you have a wage-driven inflation rate all over the world. Inflation rates are wages-driven and nothing else. There is a strong correlation between unit labor costs and inflation. Unit labor cost is the premium, so to say, of nominal wages over productivity, over national productivity. And the only thing we agreed upon in the monetary union is very important to note, because that was not realized this morning at all. We only agreed on an inflation target. It was asked, the monetary union asked for nominal convergence, not real convergence. That's not true. Nobody asked Italy to be as rich as Germany at the moment when the monetary union was put in place. And it was reasonable to do so, because the only obligation that we took with the monetary union was to follow an inflation target of 2%. That was the only thing. So the inflation was harmonized and there was convergence towards 2%. That was the German inflation rate of the last 30, 40 years. Real convergence is not asked for. If you want the inflation to reach the inflation of 2%, you have to adjust to your productivity. You have to adjust your nominal wages to your productivity, nothing else. If your productivity is low, no problem. You just have low nominal wage increases. If your productivity is high, wonderful. You have to adjust in terms of high wage increases. That's the only thing. That's very simple and very straightforward. So nominal convergence is what happened, but is what is needed. But what happened? What happened in the monetary union? Now, what happened is nominal divergence. And who did it? That's the question. You see, the simple question is, who did it? Who brought about this nominal divergence? The minimum requirement of a monetary union was not fulfilled from the very beginning, from the very first day on, more or less. And you see, you have EMU without Germany. The orange line is above the inflation target. So Italy is also above the inflation target. I can show it to you in a minute. How much is Italy above the inflation target? Was in Italy inflationist or what? No, it's 0.5% above the inflation target, 2.5 or 2.6 instead of 2.0. And then you see the big gap, but where comes the big gap from? Well, the big gap comes from Germany, from no one else. From no one else than from Germany. The wonderful pressure, political pressure on German wages brought about the biggest divergence that you can imagine, namely the nominal convergence, which violated all the important rules of the monetary union from the very beginning, And if you ask yourself, where does the deflation come in Europe from? Deflation, suddenly we have deflation. All the German economists that Ansgar Belke mentioned were wrong, but totally wrong. Why were they wrong? Because they all said that will be an inflation union. They will produce inflation all the time. The silly Italians will produce inflation if we have to suffer from inflation. No, what we have is deflation. Where is it coming from, the deflation? Well, deflation has only one source, Germany. German wages and nothing else. Nothing else but German wages. Why don't we talk about it? Why don't we talk about it? Why did this country violate the rules from the beginning? Although it was the German inflation target, everybody promised to adjust. And it was a promise. We promised to adjust to 2%. I talked to Carlo Ciampi here in his office some time ago, when he was still finance minister. And he said, yes, what we did, we dismantled the Scala Mobili. We were able to produce 2% inflation. I said, congratulations. Unfortunately, the Germans were not interested in that. See, in this, if you don't talk about these things, you talk about nothing. I'm sorry to say that. Because this is the core of the matter. This is the core of the matter. If a monetary union with the promise not to undershoot the target, to stick to the target and not to use your own wages to push other countries out of the markets. This is the promise of a monetary union. This promise has been broken. It has been broken a little bit by Italy and Greece, but much more by Germany. And the only country that was really adjusting to the target, I show it to you, was France. France was the only country. You see, if you look up to 2008, 2009, Italy was overshooting. Italy was living beyond its means. Italy had an inflationary bias, a very small one. But France exactly adjusted to the inflation target. And Germany was living below its means. And it is still. It still is, and nothing else. So what does it mean? In 2008, 2009, if intelligent people would have looked at this chart and would have said, oh, something was wrong in the Eurozone, what are we going to do? Well, it's very simple what they would have said, intelligent people maybe. They would have said, oh, we have to adjust. Look, the Italians have to come down, the Germans have to go up. And the French stay where they are. But this is exactly not what is happening, because it was a power game and it's politics, and politicians always insist that they are right, and they have to sell to their own people that they are right. And the Germans were the strong country in the world, and so they had to prove that they are right. And so they said, oh, we are right, you adjust. And you see it happens. Italy is adjusting in a deflationary way. This is absolutely new numbers from the Commission. France and Italy are adjusting downwards. All the other countries have done that already. Greece has done it. You see, Greece has, that's the line, the purple line is Greece. It has adjusted like hell. It has cut its wages by 30%. Unfortunately, it was not very successful with that policy. My other German colleague said this morning, oh, we were surprised that Greece fell 30%. Its GDP fell 30% before it came to a halt. Well, it's no surprise. It's just if you have the right theory, then you're not surprised at all. Because it was, if you cut wages of people by 30%, what will happen with the people? Is there going to be full employment at the moment because there's a neoclassical labor market where a wage cut leads to full employment? No, the other way around. If you cut wages, you get unemployment. You get unemployment because demand is falling immediately. But for people like the German Council of Economic Advisors, the word demand unfortunately doesn't exist insofar they cannot comprehend that. You see, this is the simple thing. Who had to adjust? Germany dictated that all the others have to adjust. And Germany did not adjust at all. Germany is running now parallel to the inflation target, which means there is a gap. A gap will be open for a very long time. Can you imagine when Italy will reach Germany with this kind of policy? You know, 1 year ago, I was at a similar conference in Italy. I said, well, Italy has a simple choice. Italy can go on with its orange curve here, or it can cut wages like Greece by 20%. The first option means to die slowly. The second option means to die quickly. That are the options that Italy has. Now Italy has chosen. We go in the middle of the road. This is what we do. We go in the middle of the road. We die slowly, not quickly, but we die definitely. See? Sometimes life is very simple, and economics is very simple sometimes. Yeah. Because if you cut wages by 20%, what will happen? The same will happen as in Greece. You will end up with 20% fall in GDP because 20% of demand collapses. So, and then other powers then are in this room will take over the power in Italy. Or you go on like this, then you need 10 years to reach Germany. But if you have reached Germany, you have reached nothing. Because then you are only at par with Germany. Then your prices and your costs are exactly at the same level in Germany. You have to go down below Germany. So you need 20 years of wage stagnation or wage cutting. Good luck. Yeah. That is what it's all about. And then I come to my main point. Oh, no, let me quickly show. I have a bit of time left, Alberto. You see, if you compare, because people say, oh, productivity, I mentioned it already, productivity is not important. But look at France and Germany. It's a wonderful comparison. Nominal wages in France exceeded the national productivity, French productivity, by 2%. And that was absolutely what was asked for in the monetary union, 2% plus national productivity. And then came Germany, you see. No premium of nominal wages over productivity. But look at the productivity curve. It's exactly the same. 15% over this period from 1999 to 2012. Exactly 15%. So the productivity performance of France was perfect. But nevertheless, it has lost. It has lost market shares against Germany and has lost export potential to a very large extent. And if you look at overall picture, real effective exchange rate of Germany, you see Germany is undervalued. Japan should not be compared because it was very, very high. Before that, it had a huge overvaluation and then fell down. But Germany is clearly undervalued by all measures that we have. And what should happen to undervalued countries? Well, it's very simple. We have one classical example in this world in the last years. There was a country named China that was undervalued also. And China did not change its exchange rate dramatically much, only a little bit, but they kept control of the exchange rate. But what did they do? Well, they pushed for higher wages. There was huge wage increases in China, so that the real exchange rate of China appreciated. China lost its part of its competitiveness, and that was the solution. But Germany is not willing to go for that solution because Germany says, no, we have not done anything wrong. It's our good products and things like that. Nonsense like that the German politicians say, and so nothing will change. So the result of all this was very simple. As I put it, trade is free and the winner is Germany. So this is the experience of the last 10 years or 15 years. By the way, what Ansgar Belke showed, that Germany's overall export performance is not very good, has to do with this. Because there are always two sides of the coin. The one side of the coin is export successes if you put pressure on wages, and the other side of the coin is domestic demand flatness or domestic demand weakness if you put pressure on wages. That is the same thing. So the overall performance may not be good, but the overall performance is not crucial in this world. But what is crucial in this world, we talked about it all the morning, whether you are fiscally sound or not. And here Germany has achieved a wonderful result. I do not want to show you all the charts. This is German current account. You see the German current account went straight up with the EMU countries all the time. Then when the crisis came and Italy and other countries fell into recession, and Alberto has shown it in a wonderful way, the quantity effect and the price effect, then due to the quantity effect, a German surplus with EMU came down. But what does not hinder Germany to compete with other European countries in China or elsewhere all around the world? So this brings us to a very simple but, as I said, very, very much sidelined analysis of an overall economy. Nobody likes it because it's so consistent, you know. Because it's logic, it's just accounting, it's macroeconomic accounting. And it gives you very clear conclusions. And you see, this is the four sectors, so to say, that you have in each economy: the private households, the companies, the government, and the world. Foreign countries is the world. So they have the fiscal balance for the whole world. On the one hand, above zero, you have savers. Below zeros, you have debtors. And what is a simple rule for these four curves? Well, they always add up to zero, exactly to zero. Because the world has no current account surplus with someone outside. There is no Mars or Venus we could bring our products to, and that could be indebted with the world. So it is always exactly zero. And look at it now for Italy. It's wonderful. What happened in Italy, and this is the new development that we have to take into account, the company sector now is a saver, you see. You know what the classical idea about a market economy was? I will show it to you in a minute in the case of Germany. The original idea was that there are savers, and traditionally in Italy you had a very high savings ratio. And who would be, so to say, the counterpart of the savers in form of debtors? The company sector. That's the whole idea of the last 250 years of a market economy, that the company sector is the main counterpart of the saving of the household. They are transforming the savings, so to say, into investment. This is nonsense today. It doesn't exist anymore. It existed in former very short times. That was the anti-cyclical policies when the company sector for a year or so became a net saver, then the government had to step in. But now the company sector is a saver for 10 years. What are you going to do? You see, the household sector are savers, the company sector is a saver. So Italy has found a wonderful solution. Alberto has explained it. Italy now has a current account surplus. That is why the bright blue line is down. But this is due to the recession. So you need a recession all the time to keep the government deficit at the level of 3% where you are now. If you're not willing to do that, there's only one way out, and it has nothing to do with structural reforms. That's all nonsense. Sorry to say it again. The structural reforms have to be consistent with such a picture. Whatever you do in terms of structural reform, someone has to be the debtor. Someone has to take on debt. And if you have zero interest rates for long years and the company sector is still a saver, you have a problem. Whatever structural reforms you do, it has nothing to do with that. The government has to step in. That's very simple. The government has to be the debtor if Italy does not want to rely all the time on the external surplus that was created by the recession or depression. And now let me come to Germany. You see, Germany has solved the problem. France has still company sector a bit. Japan is in a situation for a long time. You see, the US is a very simple case. Let me make the US before I come to Germany. You see, in the US, everybody says Trump should not take on debt. They should not go to the capital market. But who should do it? Who's going to do it? Someone has to do it. These curves have to add up to zero. Who's going to do it if the government is not doing it? And you see, most of what we are talking about has no sense at all because it's not based on, it is not based on a proper analysis. The proper analysis for the United States tells you they have a current account deficit, so so to say, Germany and the others are providing them with savings or taking demand from them. The company sector is this net saver and the household is net saver. So who is going to be the debtor? Yeah, this is the simple answer. The simple question should be asked every day, every hour, so to say, in all the parliaments of the world, and to find an answer. And the answer is very simple. There's only one sector that can be the debtor, namely the government. Love it or not, it's not that you have to like it, but it's necessary. It's unavoidable. And only if you close your eyes, if you are in the total state of denial, then you don't look at it. Now come to Germany. Germany has found a solution, you see. The wonderful country has found a solution for everything. In Germany, everybody's a saver. Isn't that wonderful? Yeah, everybody's a saver, you see. And who are the debtors? Well, you. No, not you, but the other guys out there. Italy no longer because it is in a depression. But all the other guys have to be debtors. Yeah, and now we only need to think about Germany and the world, or Germany and the EMU as a large, rather closed economy, or the United States as a rather large, rather closed economy. And what is the answer that we can give? Well, there's a solution that one country can go for, but it's idiotic. It's idiotic and it's inconsistent and it's stupid if this country asks the other countries exactly to do the same as it has done. But this is what Germany does all the time. As human beings with human logic, we know it's impossible. Germany is not asking something that is not reasonable and that's painful or so. No, it's asking the impossible. Be aware of that. Huh? Whenever someone from Germany asks you to do things that are impossible, what would you say? You would say, oh, that's stupid, go home. But nobody does it in Italy. Why not? Why are the politicians not standing up and saying, you cannot ask the impossible? We cannot all become like Germany. It's impossible, logically impossible. We cannot all be mercantilists. Huh? We cannot all be mercantilists. And you see, to show the 60s of Germany, Germany has not always been a mercantilist. This is the 60s of Germany, where Germany was a normal market economy with the company sector being the debtor, the government, and the other countries somewhere in the middle, close to zero, and the private households were saving. But these times do not exist anymore. I'm coming to the end. These times do not exist anymore. And as they do not exist anymore, we should not talk about old times, but we should talk about modern times. And we should adapt our policy ideas and conclusions to these modern times. Thank you very much.